belong in here.
Yes, you do.
I don't deserve this injustice. Yes. What?
You do. It's all mucked up in your head, man. It's eating you away.
What?
The girls, Larry.
Oh.
The girls, yes.
No.
You gotta tell people what you did. You gotta get clear of it.
You're my brother. You're my brother.
And I failed you. I didn't look after you right. Like if you get the flu, I'm supposed to get you medicine. If you're cold and I have a blanket, I'm supposed to share it with you. And if you're fucked up in how you think, I'm supposed to help you not do bad things.
No, Gary, not you.
I need you to do what's right here, Larry. And not for them. Not for them. But for you. You're never gonna stop living in fucking agony until you do.
Gary. Not you, Gary. Please. Hey, please.
Let me help you.
Hi, I'm Jake McLaughlin, and you're listening to Monday Morning Critic Podcast.
Thank you, Jake. So, any truth to the rumor that they're all great people are born in October?
I think there is. I think there must be.
There got to be. It's got to be. So, I did a deep dive of your Instagram. Not a deep dive, but a dive, and just you've got a lot going on, right? From a deckhand to all this stuff. But I want to pick 3 that I liked a lot.
Okay.
I love the photo of you and Dee Wallace a lot. I've had her on the podcast. She's maybe the sweetest woman maybe the sweetest person I've ever met in my life.
Oh, she really is. It was like, I really meant that when I said it, when it was like a childhood dream come true, because I saw this thing just recently. And it was, I think, for like the ET anniversary or something. They had all these celebrities on there saying, what's your favorite moment in ET and all that stuff. And for me, I was thinking about it. I'm like, God, what is my favorite moment in ET? And of course, like the bikes taking off and all that stuff was great. But I really liked the scene in the very beginning with Dee when you first get introduced to all of them and all the kids at the table and they're arguing with each other and they're bullshitting. Like that to me was just like, that threw you right into it. And all those kids did such a fantastic job in that scene that I was just like I guess maybe from an acting standpoint, because if I look at those things, like I pay attention to that kind of crap,
Yeah.
And I'm watching it as it's going through, because we watch it quite a bit still with our kids, and that scene, I just like, God, how did he get them to just like, because that's a hard thing to do. Like people underestimate that like with getting first of all a bunch of kids together and then having them do a scene where it just totally sells it that they're in the middle of this game and they're arguing and they're breaking the youngest brother's balls and doing all that, and the mom's doing it. It was like that's probably my favorite scene in the movie, and it's such a overlooked little deal. It's sort of like with Jaws, what's your favorite line? We're gonna need a bigger boat. Mine was I can't spit. I got no spit, because it
just yeah, those little moments. Yeah, and Jake, I totally agree with you, by the way. My ET lunchbox, I'm all in on that, and I'm all in on her as a mom in that. Like, she was phenomenal. Never mind, Jake. She completely kicked ass in Cujo.
Stephen King. Yeah, she's so sweet, and she's very talented. She's got a bunch of irons and fires with different things that she does too. She does all sorts of stuff, and she was just very nice. And she's an icon, especially to us, grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was just like she was such an icon, and to meet her and get to work with her and just see how she is as a person. She's very grounded, and that's nice. Had sweet things to say.
Yeah, and the other post I liked was you're a fan of the 80s, clearly, and we'll get into that a little bit. But it's an account back to the 80s, 80s with a Z on it, and you actually reached out to the guy. You went to see it. Like from your pictures, it looks like he's got everything. Like,
Oh my gosh, the guy, his name's Timmy, and it's a funny thing because I was shooting that movie. It was called Homestead, and I don't know. They changed the name of it to something, and I can't remember what they changed the name of it to now. They were talking. They told me, and I can't remember now. I don't know.
It happens.
But we were. D was in that, and so I had been following this guy for a while on Instagram because he had this all this awesome '80s stuff, and then I realized that we were filming in Tennessee and that he lived in Tennessee. So I actually hit him up and I said, "Hey, how far are you from wherever we were?" And he was only like an hour away or something. I said, "Hey, do you mind if I come up on the weekend?" And I actually went and picked up the guy that was one of the boom operators, the sound guys on my that was working on the movie, because he was really into the '80s stuff. He was just a really cool guy. And so I picked him up and we drove out there and went and looked at his stuff. And it was just like, it truly was like, when I said that on my post, I meant every word of it. It was like,
Yeah.
It was just so, it was kind of emotional, really, because he had things that I had forgotten about that I had. And just like this, because I'm sentimental in that way. I think you probably are too. Maybe it's not. And he was so nice, so friendly. His wife was a doll, just absolutely just a sweetheart and just so welcoming. And we went and I was there for a few hours looking at his stuff. And I mean, you could spend days in there looking at the collection that he has. And he doesn't just get the shit that just because he can get it. The stuff that he has is in great shape. It's great quality, and he knows what to get. And you're just looking at his stuff, like just the little collections that he has. And he has stuff that you don't see. Like when he'll pull things out, then he posts them on Instagram. And then so what ended up happening was I ended up getting he and his wife onto the movie as a featured background.
Oh,
so they came out, and you'll see them in the film. I made sure that they were in it too. When I went in to go do ADR, I'm like, "You didn't cut Timmy and his wife out. You didn't cut them out, did you?" And and they said, no, they're definitely in it. And so I'm like, "Good. You're not allowed to cut them out." And so it's a scene where it's a flashback scene, and I'm driving into our neighborhood, but it's because it's kind of like, I can't say a lot about it, but let's just say there's a heightened neighborhood watch, I guess, some armed neighborhood watch that are going on because some things are going on around the world that it's a necessity to have that. And so Timmy and his wife are there. When I'm turning around, I give them a wave, and they're standing there with their rifles and shotguns at the front, like pulling their guard duty. It was pretty cool, and they had a great time. They went out and they got paid for it too. I didn't even expect that, but they got a little bit of cash thrown their way, which paid for their. They went out and made it a date night, so they went out and had dinner afterwards and had a good time. It was pretty cool.
Well, that's a pretty damn good day. And he's just a collector, right? He doesn't sell, or is he just like?
No, he does sell. He does sell. I actually bought off of him. I had him. He sent it to me because I think he had an extra or something. I bought Snake Mountain. Skeletor's castle, so I have that here.
Oh, how great is that?
Yeah, so he does sell. And in fact, the funny thing is that he told me was that he's virtually spent hardly any money on that stuff because of him wheeling and dealing and doing trades. He'll trade up, lateral trades and things like that, where he'll get this for that and stuff. So, and then people send him stuff too, because they realize that they don't need it or they don't want it. They have a little bit of a sentimental attachment, but this guy really has something going on at his place. So they go, you know what? It's in really good hands with this guy. And it is. And he, he has, every room in his house is just, it's next level. It's pretty cool. He has One-Eyed Willie, like he has a replica that he made of One-Eyed Willie in his living room in a chair. And like, there's so much stuff. It's just, I can do a whole podcast about the stuff that this guy has, and he's fantastic and a really sweet guy.
Yeah, that's an awesome that castle. And my dream would be, and I got a bunch of Star Wars stuff from the 70s, but the one thing I really want is a GI Joe, that aircraft carrier. Remember that? It was like ginormous.
He has that. He has the aircraft. He has the GI Joe aircraft carrier. Yeah, I know. And that was one that I think I knew one kid growing up that had it, because that was like, you had to be rich to have that stuff. That was that wasn't, birthdays weren't like they are now, where kids are getting everything they want for their birthday. It was like, you get like one or two little things and that was it, unless you had a party or something, but no one's getting that aircraft carrier. That thing was ridiculous. Yeah, that thing, unreal.
In the box now, Jake, that thing is like $7-8 grand. North of that probably too. I mean, I've seen it on eBay a few times. It's
yeah. There was the thing that I had this thing when I was a little kid. It was a really cool. It was an ET life-size ET toy chest. So it was a plastic toy chest that was ET, and in the back of it, it had a little hatch that you could push open. It was spring-loaded. You could push it open, and you put your toys in.
Okay.
And I had that, and they're worth apparently a ton of money now. And I saw one at this place in Las Vegas. It's off of Fremont. It's a vintage '80s collection store there, and they had one up there, and I went up to the lady that worked there and I said, how much for the ET toy chest? And she goes, that's weird that you know what that is. And I said, well, I had one, and so she says, well, oddly enough, it's the one thing in the entire store that the owner will not get rid of, period. Like that thing you won't sell. And I guess Leonardo DiCaprio has one, and he's really I guess he is a big ET, or I don't know if it's just ET or if he's has a lot of vintage '80s toys that he really enjoys, but apparently he has one, and it's one of his favorite pieces. One of those ET toy chests. They're pretty cool. It was pretty.
Yeah, I mean that you're right. We could talk all day about that genre and the collectibles. The last post that I liked a lot of yours was you and Mark McGuire. I thought that was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was a funny one. So I was a huge A's fan, and I'm obviously a huge McGuire fan. I felt betrayed when he went to St. Louis, but I took it personally. So it was Jason Giambi's rookie year. So I think I was 13, 12, something like that, somewhere around that age. And my mom had bought these like fake muscle arm things from, I don't know where I got them from, honestly. I don't know, maybe it's a Halloween store or something, but you just slip your arms in them and they give you these big foam muscle arms. So my mom's boyfriend at the time, Tony, he had called up on a radio station because he was a big Raiders A's guy, and he called up and answered a question, and they said, all right, you've won dinner for two at blah, blah, blah place in Sacramento. And he goes, no, I don't want that crap. Just throw me a couple A's tickets. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So they sent him a couple of A's tickets. And so we went in on fan day, and they turned us away. They said, no, you have to be season ticket holders to go in there. And here I am. I mean, I'm dressed up. I had cleats on. I had stirrups. I had the whole uniform. I had a wig that had the curly.
You had the goatee.
I had the goatee painted on. I had a jersey because we didn't have money. I couldn't afford a McGuire jersey. So we made a Mark McGuire jersey. I just had an A's like buttoned up green shirt, and I bought the little letters from like the 99-cent store or whatever it was to put McGuire on the back of the wig. And my mom helped make it. And so we go there, and her boyfriend, Tony, he's all embarrassed because he just wants to go watch the damn game. And I'm over here like, And so they turn us away, and we're halfway back to the parking lot. And Tony goes, wait, no, these are season tickets. I got these off the radio station on a questionnaire. I answered a question on the radio. And so we go back and we said, hey, these are season tickets. And they looked at them. Oh, yeah, they are. Here, go on in. Because it was on fan day, where fans. And I walked in there. I didn't even get to where you can meet the players. And Art Howe comes running up to me, not running, but like kind of a quick jog coming up. Dude, can I get a picture with you? And I was like, yes, you can, Art Howe. So I got a picture with him. And then Giambi spotted me. He's like, dude, get this kid behind the ropes. And like brought back all those players were cracking up, laughing, and just, doing. I think I was the only kid to get McGuire's autograph that day. Actually, I think he said, all right, I'll hook you up or something. I don't know what it was, but it was a surreal moment for me because I was just like, are you kidding me? I'm back behind the ropes with the players now. This is great. I thought I was going to get to go in the dugout.
Yeah. For anyone listening to this or watching this, take a look at your Instagram is just so much fun to. I mean, you're a deckhand. I mean, you've done all these different things. It's just so much fun,
Yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I eventually want to end up doing. I'd like to I was supposed to go up there. I'm supposed to be up there right now. Actually, I've just been so busy. I just got done doing another job, and now I got to go right back into another one. So I haven't had time, but ideally, in the future, I'd like to spend my summers up there deckhanding, and eventually, I don't know, maybe eventually get a captain's license for one reason or another. I don't know, but maybe just deckhand. I just like doing it. It's fun. It's my favorite job I've ever had. Honestly, I absolutely love working on the ocean. It's my
I've seen one too many episodes of Deadliest Catch to ever want to do that. Like that's hard. But that's like that. I mean, that's a little different than what you're saying because those guys actually, Jake, don't they go out to like it's like what, like 2 months, but it's like the worst waters. Is it the same or is it different with
yeah?
What?
Well, it's rough out there, but not like we're not getting the swells that they're getting in the Bering Sea up out towards Russia, out of Dutch Harbor, because the when it's really rough is out there during the Opelio season for snow crab and all that. That's the rough season. I mean, it can get rough at any time, but yeah, the snow crab season's the roughest one. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to do that too. I'd like to do one season of that if I could get a chance to. I have a pretty messed up back, so it's tough for me to, you know,
that would be tough. Yeah,
to do that. I'd like to give it a shot once I get my back, back in order. I'd like to do one season on a crab boat at least, just to give it a go.
Yeah, Jake, for those listening, born and raised in California, one of the interesting things was one of your earlier jobs, early security job at Universal. Do you think you took that because of the nostalgic piece, or did you think you took that because of the security aspect, or do you think you just took it because you needed the money? Like what? I feel you could have taken a security job anywhere, right? But like Universal would indicate that, you know what? Hey, like you're clearly somebody that loves movies, loves TV.
Oh, yeah. I grew up with it. Like I always thought nobody could stump me on like movie trivia I mean, there was a time where I just like a good more than a decade where I just saw everything. Like we weren't well off, so we would get dropped off at the movie theater and stay there all day and watch everything. We would just pay for one movie, go hide in the bathroom, and then go sneak into other movies all day long. That's what that was what we did. Sorry. Yeah. That's what we did. And so the thing with the Universal Studios deal was I lived just right around the corner. I lived on Whipple Street, right around the corner from Universal, and I was looking to get a job up there at like City Walk or do something. I wanted to be an actor, and I remember hearing the story about Spielberg just kind of finagling his way onto the lot and whatnot. And I figured I could try to do something similar just to be around that industry and business. And so I don't know. I just wanted to be around it in some capacity to figure out, how I could get into it without, because it's such a hard thing to do. People ask me now, how do you get into acting? I'm like, I have no idea. I really don't. And so that was it. It was close to home, and I wanted to be near, movie sets and music videos. And I got to do a lot of like stuff, but most of the time I ended up working in the theme park section of Universal and up at City Walk. And every once in a while I would have my own shift down at the lower lot where the Jurassic Park and now it's Jurassic World ride is. And I had my own office, and I would sneak out the back. And I think they were filming like Felicity, I think it was the show on the back lot at the time. And I would go there and I'd walk into their little craft services cart that they'd had, and I'd make stuff, and I'd even have the lead actress on there, walked in there one time. She goes, "Oh, the ham's right in there under the fridge. If you just go down, they all, they just thought I was part of the set security or something." But I was just, I don't know. I just wanted to be around it. And then September 11th happened, and I was working there, and it got pushed. We were working doubles, 16 hours a day, training new people. They beefed up security. I was doing all that, and I went down. I had to go into work that day on September 11th, but then the next day I went in and signed up for the Army. So I signed up the very next day after that. And that kind of put a hold on any of my acting ambitions or anything. I didn't have any experience too, so I didn't know any way of how I would ever get into the film industry. So, just
yes. So Jake, you enlist after 9/11. Do you serve? Is it a 4 years you served in the Army?
Yeah, I signed up for 3, and I got stop loss for a year, so I ended up doing 4. I ended up doing 4 years, and then I got out, and I was working pouring concrete for my old neighbor, for one of my good friends in high school's dad. I used to work for him in high school too, here and there, and we did some of the work on the Sierra Nevada brewery and all that stuff, and I was doing that. And then my old friend who used to live, our next door neighbor on Whipple Street in North Hollywood, is Brendan Wayne, John Wayne's grandson.
Oh yeah, Mandalorian.
So Mandalorian. So he's a great guy. He and his wife Sarah are just the nicest. Like shirt off your back. You could not run into nicer people or know nicer people. It's an honor to know them actually.
Yeah.
They would send me packages when I was in Iraq and all that stuff. And I came back, and I didn't know it. I didn't know that she was working as an assistant to a casting director at all, let alone Sarah Finn and Randy Hiller, who were, Sarah Finn.
Wow.
I mean, they're the biggest, they're the biggest casting directors in the industry, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they're fantastic at it. And I mean, so she called me up and said, hey, I was up in Northern California, and she was actually driving around Los Angeles trying to round up combat vets to audition for this movie called In the Valley of Ella that Paul Haggis had written.
Great movie, yeah.
Because he wanted to audition actual combat vets for the roles to try to get some authenticity out of it. And so she called up and said, hey, you can pick between 2 characters, and these are the sides. If you want to do it, you can come down. And I was flat out broke. I had $200 to my name, and concrete season was about to end. And I had just gone down. I went to truck driving school for 4 days and got my Class A license because I fast tracked through it and got my Class A license in 4 days. It was tough. It was a lot of studying. And then you have to do the tests and everything else. So I had it. But then, because I was going to try to drive a concrete truck or a truck in the off season to make a little extra money, because we just and we didn't have any money, and so I said, yeah, I'll come down and audition for it. I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, I'll come down because I have nothing to lose. So I borrowed a little bit of money to get a plane ticket to go down there, audition for Sarah and Randy, and I brought, I have an Olympic medal from Saddam's palace that I got with his face on it, and I got a photo album and some stuff that I had, and they wanted me to bring down. So I brought it down, I auditioned, and then Sarah Finn and Randy and Sarah Arrington, my friend that worked for her, they had me sit afterwards, after the audition, for hours, and we had lunch and everything. And they were just asking me questions about the military, and, what age would you be for this? What would this be? What would this do? They were really getting into it. That's why they're such good casting directors, is because they really take dive into it and really figure it out and do the best they can. They're great. And so then they asked me to come back on Monday and audition for Paul and the Producers. And I had already had a ticket because I had to go to work on Monday. So I was like, oh shit, yeah, I'll come back Monday. I kind of, my uncle gave me the nod, yes, you're going to do it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come in. So I called my boss. I'm like, hey, can I miss Monday? Because they want me to come back and audition for the director. He's like, yeah, no, we're slowing down. So he was a hard ass. So it wasn't an easy ask. You don't miss work. You don't do any of that. And so great guy though. And so, yeah, I came back in, and I had to change my flight, and it left me with $10 in my bank account. So I came back in and auditioned for Paul and the Producers. They gave me, some notes, and I'm walking out, and I see James Franco walking in, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to get this part. This isn't going to happen. And so I just walk out, and it's everyone kept saying, okay, you did your part. Now just get it out of your head. And about 3 days later, I'm back up in Chico, and I get a phone call from Sarah Finn. And she goes, hey, Jake. And I said, hey, Sarah. And she goes, Sarah Finn. And I said, hey, Sarah. And she goes, I just wanted to call and tell you that you did a fantastic job auditioning. You really are incredible. You should come down. You should come down to LA and take some classes and get, hone your acting, but you have something there, and you should really do it. And I just wanted to call you and thank you for coming down. I know the odds of you getting this part were astronomical to begin with. So, I just wanted to call you and thank you for coming down. I said, oh, well, no, thanks, Sarah. And, inside I'm just crushed, because I knew that Tommy Lee Jones and Charlize Theron were cast in the movie already. And I'm like, oh man, I really wanted this. This would have been life-changing, and that's what I'm thinking in my head. And she goes, so just thanks for coming. I said, no, thanks, Sarah. I'll be able to tell my grandkids that I auditioned for an Academy Award winning director and writer, and that's pretty cool to say, and she goes, oh yeah, no, I appreciate it. And you got the part. And I
wow.
Go, but what? And she goes, congratulations, Jake, you got the part. And I just hear, and I was just completely in shock. And I hear this laughing on the other line. And it's my friend, Sarah and Randy Hiller. They were listening on the phone call. And I'm just like, are you serious? And she goes, yes, I'm serious. And they're like, woo, Jake. They're all screaming. I'm like, I love you. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. And I run out, and I get off the phone with them, and I run out to the living room, and my wife's on the phone with her mom, I think. And I run out and I say, Stephanie, I got the part. And she drops the phone instantly and just starts crying and hugging me, and I'm hugging her, and I'm crying. So it was just this whole ordeal. And then so I went and did that, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And then Franco was in the movie as well. And he ended up hooking me up with his manager. He called me up when I was in LA one day and said, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm just sleeping. I was out late with my buddies last night. He goes, well, get it together. You get it together. You got a meeting in 30 minutes with my manager. And so I went and met with him, and he sent me out to meet with some agents. And so that's how I got into the industry. And that's not, I don't think that's the typical,
No, no.
of doing it. So when people ask me, how do you get into it? I'm like, I don't know what I don't know what the normal way of doing it is. Oh, I saw River Runs Through It. I saw that in the theater. That was a great one. My dad took me to go see that at the pageant in Chico.
Underrated, Jake. Like that movie, I can't watch it without weeping. Like I just,
Oh, it's so good.
It's so free. I'm glad you noticed that because not a lot of people do. It's a great movie. Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your military before we moved off it. So
Yeah.
my dad was in Vietnam. He saved like 7 to 9 guys. I don't remember what the number is, in a burning van, and he got a bronze medal with V device.
Nice.
And he talked about not the combat part, but the experiences of traveling and friendship. And I miss him a lot because I know what kind of man he was, and I think the military had a lot to do with that. I think he was a good man throughout his whole life. What did you find that you learned about yourself in the military, Jake? What did you take out of it? I'm sure there's many things because you were a decorated soldier. Just anyone who reads your IMDb sees the impact that you had in the military. And what do you think you took out of the military and learned about yourself, Jake?
Well, I mean, it definitely teaches you responsibility, personal responsibility. But then you have like things that I actually took to heart, with which were they have this thing called the 7 Army values, and that's and if the acronym, if you like kind of spell it out, it's leadership, and it's for the LDR, it's loyalty, duty, respect, and then honor, integrity. Selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And really, what that boiled down to was the integrity part, because that's kind of an all-encompassing thing. And I like to think of myself as a guy that has integrity. That's the ability to do what's right, even if no one's around and you won't get caught, you still do the right thing, and that's what that is. And and it really ingrained that in me because it puts a lot of things into perspective, especially once you get back into the civilian world. You find yourself kind of laughing at, I don't know, people that find these trivial problems to be overwhelming and things like that. It's like you especially here in the States, people don't realize how good we have it here. After going to combat and seeing what other parts of the world live like and are what their normal day-to-day life is like, and we've got it made here. And I just think it embedded in me a very deep appreciation of what we have and what this country is and what it stands for. And like you said with your dad, with his camaraderie, I mean, my buddies I was at war with, even the ones that you didn't get along with, are still your brothers, and you have their back no matter what. And we get together every year. We do a reunion every year, usually in Florida. Because that's where my buddy Dave O'Neill lives. I get his name gets mentioned in almost every show. He's been in background in a lot of shows I've done too. He's great. But
is he the one that punctured your eardrum?
He is. Yeah.
Yep. Good. Real good friend. Real nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
He felt awful about that, but man, that was a rough spot.
That had to be painful. As I had a friend, we were growing up, Jake, and he was cleaning his ear with a Q-tip, and his mom took like a turn, and the Q-tip went in. He described that pain. He had a puncture. He said the pain was like unlike anything he's ever been through.
It was pretty bad. It hurt pretty bad. But the thing I think I was more just discombobulated to the point where my equilibrium was so off that was concerning me most, and it kind of overshadowed the pain. Plus, I was pretty drunk, so I didn't really feel it. I don't drink anymore. I stopped drinking last September, actually. So that was actually like with on Blackbird and stuff with Ray Liotta. That was actually right before I stopped drinking, because I would go out drinking with him and his fiance here and there when we were filming, because we were all staying at the same hotel. Yeah. And so I stopped drinking just right in the middle of filming the show, right in the middle of filming Blackbird and Homestead.
It's not my business, Jake, but it was just a decision where it's like, you know what, I'm just done with it. Like,
absolutely. It was one of those things. I got real sick. I got sick from the vaccination, made me really sick, believe it. And I was in the hotel room, and because I had COVID before, I was totally fine. I got COVID a month after getting the vaccine, and I was totally fine. But the vaccine, I lost 15 pounds in one weekend.
Wow.
weekend, and I like food commercials would come on TV, and I couldn't even look at them. I couldn't hold any water down, nothing. I like nothing looked good to me, and so I that was the main thing. That was the I used it as an opportunity to stop, but I was like, and it was taking its toll on me. You know, I can't be a casual drinker. You know, I'm just not, it's not in me. I'm Irish and Native American. So I'm like, that's a lethal combination when it comes to alcohol. Not not the best combo.
So yeah, I mean, I think I'm at that point too. Like, I mean, I'm not the one or two, like, I don't, like, during the work week, I don't really have anything, but like if I'm going to have beer, by the looks of my face, I have beer. Like, I'm not going to have like one or two and say, I'm going to call it a night.
No.
And I think I've come to that crossroads, Jake, like you did, for a different reason, but
yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could have one or two and then stop. And then
me too.
Like I got to the point where I was a bottle of whiskey a night guy. I was a bottle of Irish whiskey or Scotch a night, and I was drinking that. And then when I stopped drinking hard alcohol, I started drinking. And I wasn't like a Coors Light. You know, I didn't drink that stuff. I was an IPA Sierra Nevada guy, and I drink 10 of those a night. You know, I was just putting them down, putting them back. And it just was taking its toll on my body, my health, my overall feel. And, you know, I have 4 kids. I don't need to be doing that shit. So I just had to stop. And it's been good. I there are times where I miss like a celebration ale or something when I'm up snowboarding, or like I'm up, doing something outside, I'm fly fishing, or I'm doing something I'd love to have just a beer, a couple beers, but I just can't, it's a bummer.
Yeah,
it's
I get it.
Realization. You have to make that realization for yourself, and no one can do it for you. You gotta you gotta let yourself hit that point, and that's it's tough though. It's a tough road.
It's not easy. Nope. Is it, last question before we hop into your acting, is it difficult being a father of 4? So like, I have a 2-year-old. I mean, I'm a little older than you are. I waited a little later. I waited until the winter of my life to have my first child, and we're trying to have another one. So I have a girl, and we're hopefully having another one. I know you have 3 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
Is it tough to balance, Jake, what you're doing on screen with home? Is that a difficult balance for you?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It's because I'm not Matt Damon. I don't get to make the rules where I won't be separated for 2 weeks, and that's nice, but that's just not the reality in my world. So it's usually like when we were doing Quantico and stuff, I was gone 10 months out of the year, filming 16 to 18 hours every day. I missed the births of Rowan and Freya. They were both born. All my kids were born in Paradise, and I missed Rowan and Freya's births because I was working. And just the just being home. It's good to have both parents at home, even if it's mom or dad goes off to work and doesn't come home till 6, 7 o'clock at night. At least you're there to put them to bed and have food with them and stuff. But that just isn't the case with acting, because ideally, and that's the whole thing with in my career in the future, is that I'm doing a show called Will Trent after this, and after that show's over, I'm West Coast. That's it for me. I'm not taking any jobs that film anywhere outside of the West Coast, period. I don't care what it is. I really don't. I'm just not doing it because I want to be near my family. I want to be able to come home more frequently and be with my wife and kids. Because anyway, especially with my older 2, because I was working so much with them. I actually liked the COVID lockdown because it was nice to be home and be with my family and spend quality time with my kids. And we did puzzles, like crazy amounts of puzzles, and just games and stuff. And plus my dad and his girlfriend Deborah were here, and they were locked down with us because they just happened to be visiting at the time. So it was great. I actually really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's very difficult. And then there's also the reacclimation point where you're gone for so long, and then I'm used to being on set and like working all day, and then going home and maybe watching a movie or playing video games or something, and then passing out because you're exhausted. But you can't just go home and go to sleep after you're on set all day. You have to wind down. And I used to wind down with alcohol, but now I don't do that anymore. So I just kind of find another way. And then you come home and it's back to family life, but it takes a little bit of a reacclimation to get to switch to flip all the right switches to get back into that mode for not just me, but for my wife as well. It's just like, okay. And I'd heard a story when I was filming in Ireland about Bono when he's away on tour. His wife makes him stay in, I think he owns the hotel, but she makes him stay in that hotel for a couple of weeks when he gets done on tour, and then have visitation, a little bit here and there during the day until a couple of weeks is up, and then he gets to come home to be with us. Because it's a tough process. People don't think about that aspect of it. They just think, oh, you're on a show, you can retire immediately and you can go do that, and it's all fluff and pillows. But it's like the hours are like, I hear people bitching about working a 10-12 hour day. That's a really quick day in the acting world.
Yeah, you guys are putting in 15-hour days, months at a time. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quantico, a great show. You have a lot of things in your filmography. I just chose two just to touch on with you. The first of which is, I don't know why people don't bring this up to you more. Maybe they have and I haven't seen it. But, dude, you are awesome in Warrior. Like, Warrior is the most underrated sports movie of all time. That's a fact. And it's definitely maybe one of the more underrated movies in general. Like, I rewatched that last night. That's a beautiful movie. Like, that's an emotional, beautiful movie. I had a poster, the original poster, and moving it got ripped, so I ordered another one last night. I'm in love with that movie, Jake. Love it. Gavin's a genius.
He is. I think he's also one of the most underrated directors out there. I'd love to work with Gavin again, because I really like that guy. He's just a cool guy. He makes it fun, and that a lot of times that's not the case. Like, because I always go into things from, don't forget why we're here, everybody. I'm here because I love movies. I love TV. I love doing this. I love that aspect of the job. I love doing the work. I like being in scenes, and like that's what there's like a small percentage of it where it's just very rewarding when you do a really good scene or you're doing something like that. And he just makes it fun. Like he doesn't forget to make it. He didn't forget to make it fun for people, and just to be very casual and just and you don't run into that a lot. It's just not something that happens a lot on film sets anymore. It's very business-like a lot of the time. And Warrior was just like, I don't know, Gavin. I mean, he killed that movie. I mean, it was just so freaking good. And the first time I saw it, because we filmed that and finished it, I think well before The Fighter ever came.
Yeah,
out.
Of course, definitely. Yeah,
they're both great movies. The Fighter was a great movie as well, a fantastic movie, but they're two totally different movies. And that we just, the editing, he took his time with the editing process, and the way he edited that movie and pieced it together to make what he did was just, he's everything he directs is great. I loved The Accountant. I Pride and Glory was great. Miracle was a great sports movie. He's fantastic. And when I saw that movie the first time, I brought my aunt. We went to Lionsgate to watch it. They invited me to a screening with a bunch of the producers, and like I was watching it, and I totally forgot I was in the movie until my scene popped up, and I thought, oh shit, I'm in this. I hope I do an all right job, because these guys are absolutely like on a whole nother level. Like it was incredible. And then like by the time the end of the movie rolled, all you hear is these sniffles from the executives and the producers and all that stuff from Lionsgate in the back. And my aunt leans over to me, and she's got tears coming out of her eyes. I'm a little welled up myself, and she leans over and goes, Jake, this movie's great. Like she and people do like that. Like a lot of times I'm on set, and because people on sets generally have an eye for and a love for movies. When I'm on set, that's the one that a lot of people usually come up and say, hey, Warrior was fantastic, because it really is. It's a movie that if anyone watching this hasn't seen it, it's like watch it immediately.
1,000% must watch movie.
It's so good. It's actually it's like of movies, it's my favorite movie that I've been in personally. Like I'm not afraid to say that. I really think that movie. And then I mean, obviously Ella was fantastic, because it was my first thing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and that turned out to be just the performances and everything in that were fantastic as well. But Warrior was so emotional, so good. It was so good.
And you look like a guy that's been, when I saw you in the movie, like you look like a guy that's been acting forever at that point. Like sometimes you see people that make a transition into acting, and you can kind of see the the rust a little bit. You look like you've been acting since you were a kid. Like you look so natural in that, Jake.
Well, thanks. No, I mean, I was also playing a military role, which is and Gavin was very cool about that too. Like I had this scene where you're first introduced to me, and he gives me the roster for, that we're back in from patrol, and I got to go in and turn it into the HQ at FOB, and he wanted me to do something. He goes, just do something that like lets us know, that the audience know that the guy that's on the computer right there. And that guy was actually a reservist Apache pilot in real life. That guy that watching the video. And so I was just like, okay, I walked in. Every time I did it a little bit harder and a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And I just kept I'd smack him in the back of the head, like that. To where you see his head just kind of go forward like that. And it just worked. And he's all about giving you that freedom with choices and stuff. And that's what's really nice to get, which is something you very, very rarely get in the acting side of it. It's very, very regimented, I guess, most of the time, but like that, and that was the case with Blackbird as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a second. Filled with good performances, but I have to tell you, Nick Nolte's performance in Warrior, I feel like I think about that on a weekly basis. The scene where he relapses, and he and Tom Hardy finally connect, and he's holding him in bed.
Yeah,
I mean, I had tears last night, and I've seen this freaking movie 100 times.
Yeah.
Nick Nolte, this is one of the best performances ever. Not just for him, just like ever. I mean, so amazing.
He should have got it for that. In my opinion, my unbiased.
Your unbiased opinion, yeah.
He was a nice guy. Nick was a nice guy. I didn't work with him in any scenes, but we stayed in the same hotel, and I'd say hi to him. He was It's funny, you'll do a lot of these projects and you don't actually meet some of the people in the movie. People just take it for granted that you did. Like I didn't have any scenes with Ray and Blackbird, but I knew him. And like Jennifer Morrison was in Warrior, and now I'm doing a TV series with her on ABC, but we never met when we were doing Warrior.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of excellent, I'm gonna end the interview talking about Blackbird.
Okay.
I'm in love with this show. I'm in love with it. Like I fell in love with it. I had Natalie Kingston on, who's a cinematographer. I had Joe Williamson, and I had Lanny, who plays the Jessica Roach.
Yeah.
Boy, I got to tell you, Paul Hauser said that he got this role because Taron went to bat for him. How did you come into this role, Jake, of Gary Hall?
Well, I auditioned for it on a what do you call it, Zoom?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always just happy to get through those because they always feel auditioning on a Zoom, it's sort of like what we're doing right now, but audition with it. And it's always a little bit strange because you're not in person, or you're not doing a self-tape. You're just there with a bunch of little screens of people, and they'll give you notes and stuff. And I auditioned for it. And then they had me audition again for Dennis and the executives and the producers and stuff like that. And so I just did it the best I could, and I thought I did a pretty decent job of it. And then like with auditioning, because with auditioning, for me at least personally, I do them, and I do as good of a job as I can, because it's always, even now, and I've been on thousands of freaking auditions, it's my least favorite part of the job. I think it's every favorite part of the job, but you always want to do a good job, and you don't want to turn in a crap job of something, because it just doesn't reflect well upon you. So I put some, I had a little bit of time as well for the audition, which is not something you usually get. Usually you get it at like 8:00 at night, and then like, oh yeah, the audition's tomorrow at noon, and here's 6 pages of just monologue dialogue. Get that down. And then so you just stress out. It's very stressful. You get a lot of anxiety from it, and it's just not that fun. And so with this one, I had a little bit of time to work with it, and and the dialogue was so well written that it didn't take very long to learn the lines. You just have to to get the lines down. When the dialogue's really well written, that's what it's well written, when it doesn't take you very long to learn the lines. And I think I auditioned with that scene. I auditioned with the scene at the bench at the where we were having that scene at the bench where McLaughlin came to talk with me. From that whole scene, from the time I talk to them to the time that I have that whole conversation on the bench. It was a big audition scene. It was a lot.
Wow. That's where you get off the lawnmower, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. You mentioned Ray Liotta, very similar to Nick Nolte's performance in Warrior as far as powerful, right?
yeah. I know. It's just like he's so good. I mean, he's been around a long time. You know, I was just talking to another actor, Theo Rossi, about that movie that he did, No Escape. It's like one of those. I don't even know if you can call it a guilty pleasure. I just really loved that movie that he did. You know, Goodfellas is obviously one of the best films in
No
history.
Escape is a great movie, underrated.
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 I love No Escape, and I had auditioned for Ray for this movie called. He's very blunt. Ray was very blunt, and I love that about him because he'll say if something's shit, he'll say it's shit, you know. And I auditioned for this thing. I think it was called The River Quiet or something. I think it was called The River Quiet. I want to say something along those lines. You could probably look it up. And I auditioned for it, and you know, it's fine and whatever. And I met him there, and then we had the table read for Blackbird on with all the cast members, and Ray was on there. And then when I went out and had a few drinks with him and his fiance while we were filming, he was like, "Yeah, man, you were great in the audition. I was, you know, in the read, I was looking at you going, man, this kid's got something. But then you did this shit with your hair where you like, because I had long hair, and he goes, you ran your hand through your hair, and like, you shouldn't have done that. That was stupid." I was going, well, I mean, my hair was in my face, and I couldn't read my lines, so I had to, you know, move it out of my face, right? And he's like, yeah. Sometimes you just got to just muscle through that shit.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So he was just great that way. He didn't care for the industry, and I'm in the exact boat. I don't care for the industry, but I love acting. I love the craft. I love going in and doing scenes and hopefully making them as you know, turn out as good as you can.
And Natalie said that he would stay late, just like it's amazing because you think a lifelong actor would be like, you know what, I'm done. I got to get out of here. It's 5 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. And he was the opposite of that.
Yeah. No,
weird.
he loved it. Like that's why you do it. That's why you do it. And he'd stay late, and then in the mornings you'd see him, and he was just, "Morning, Ray." To get up, and he was just such a nice guy. You know, he's just such a friendly, just a nice guy. I don't know. You know, especially being for who he is. You know, he's Ray Liotta, and you know, it's just the whole situation with him passing away just, you know, recently was just sad. It was unexpected and very sad.
Yeah, it certainly was. You know, and you are fantastic as Gary Hall, let me just say. My wife and I just absolutely loved it. Do you think that Gary genuinely believes that Larry is not a killer, or do you think he just doesn't want to acknowledge it? Do you think he knows and doesn't want to acknowledge it, or he just really doesn't believe it? What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, no, I think deep down he knows, but he doesn't. Exactly like you said, he doesn't want to acknowledge it. That he you know, he has to go through his state of denial before he rushes into any kind of, you know, finality with where he stands on the whole situation. And he's his brother, you know, he grew up with him, and he doesn't want to have to deal not just with what Larry has done, but also like possibly his role in how he got to that point. Because, you know, Gary blames himself for Larry turning out the way he did, or at least thinks that maybe some of these situations that he put Larry in might have, you know, cultivated that whole trajectory and where Larry went with all of this. And so I think that he bears a little bit of the responsibility in himself. So there's a lot of guilt that comes with there, and shame perhaps with it. And so, yeah, I do. I think that deep down inside, he knows, just because of the things that he's seen in his own private moments with Larry, especially with that situation with the hitchhiker and all that stuff that went on. So, but then there comes a point where you just can't deny it anymore, and you have to come to terms with reality. And that's what I think where he
in a powerful performance, like I said. In your mind, Jake, and I get it's acting, but in your mind, being a dad to 3 girls, is that ever in your head when you're acting in that particular situation, considering what this guy did? I get it, it's a show, it's acting, but does your personal life ever kind of give you fuel when you're acting in that regard?
Absolutely. I mean, I always said the best acting school is living your life, you know. Life experience and going out and experiencing things that can potentially give tools in the future for any scenes that might pop up with things. So when you can't help but not think, and I think that was the thing that they did a lot with. It was sort of in the same vein of like Schindler's List, when they targeted that one little girl and gave her color, gave her a red coat, black and white thing, and see all these people running around, but there's no real connection to it until you put that little girl in there that you follow, and you see that every one of those people is having a moment in some capacity to this little girl. They're all terrified. They're all this, and that's kind of the same way with the Jessica Roach and the narration with that, because you could just say, oh, he killed, 30, 40 women, and that's awful. Obviously that's terrible, but it doesn't connect you to it in any way. You're like, oh man, those are crazy numbers. That's what you think. But then when you actually put somebody in there to connect the audience to, that's what I think about when I think about that. I think, God, and I even think about like the parents of these girls that might be watching this show, late years after the fact. I think about all that stuff. It's just stuff that I don't know. I can't help but think about it, because you just got to think, God, and that's what makes you kind of want to. That's what makes you want to do it justice. You want to do it right, in a kind of a, you got to do it in a, as much as you can, and given the subject matter, a delicate way to not. I don't know. It's just I'd hate to think that any of those parents are watching this and reliving, any of those visceral emotions that they're having that they had back when their daughters went missing. It's just because it's awful. I mean, it's awful.
If for the longest time when you're watching this show, I'm wondering, is Gary in on this? Like, does he know it? Because and then the part that really throws me off is, why the hell is Larry sending a map of where the graves are to Gary? Like that, I couldn't figure that out. Like, we're like, Gary doesn't want that. Like, what's Gary going to do with that?
I think it might have. I think that's a Dennis question, because I think that I think it might have been more along the lines. I don't know if he knew what he was doing. When he told Jimmy to come meet him in the wood shop, and like, because he wanted to prove to him that he wasn't a fake, that he wasn't a wannabe, and all that. And so that might have been like his little way of proving that. But then he had to do something with it and send it off. I don't know. Maybe it was a moment where he I don't know. Maybe he wanted Gary to know. I know he sent him the blackbirds and I would paint them, but I don't know that necessarily that I knew
what they were for.
Yeah.
I have to say the most powerful scenes in You Promised, which is episode 6, are with you, Greg Kinnear, and Sepide. Three awesome actors just doing their thing. Talk about that. You talked about that in your audition, but boy, I got to tell you, that's acting at its best, Jake.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. It was that was a tough one, because we were filming in Louisiana, and we kept getting thunderstorms and rainstorms. So what would happen was we would shoot Greg and Sepida. We'd shoot their coverage, and then by the time it got around, I was getting into the groove of like really getting into that scene where I was really happy with where I was, and then they were turning around on me, and we'd get a thunderstorm come in, and then we'd call it a day. And so I'd have to go in, and then it would happen the next day. So what happened is all those scenes ended up getting compounded into one day. And I was like, oh my God, I got a big day of work coming up ahead of me. And so I had to do that like, 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 in the morning, whenever it was that we actually got there and started doing it. So I was a little not scared, but I was a little bit just nervous that it would be tough to be able to get to that place in the scene where I was, just the couple days before in that part. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I can take any credit for it. I think it really was just Dennis's writing was so on point. And like I said, he came up to me, and this is like maybe the third time this has ever happened in my career where the director comes up or the writer comes up or anyone comes up and says, hey, you don't have to be word perfect. Don't worry about the words. Just get the story out across. But then his writing's so good that I said, dude, I want to be word perfect on this. I want every word that you wrote down to be said in the scene, and I don't want to change a fucking thing about it. And I really don't. And that's what happened. Every word that's in there is what Dennis wrote, and not ad-libbed event or anything like that. I don't think, not that I remember, not that I can recall. And
It's amazing that you can go word for word with all that dialogue. I couldn't get 3 words right on a paragraph, and I can't believe that's an amazing skill in itself, Jake.
That's just one of those things that's never been that I can pride myself on, is that I've always been really good at remembering lines very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Why I don't have a method to doing it. I just look at it and I'll, I don't know. I'm fast at learning lines. That wasn't the issue. I was just really happy that the dialogue was so good and that the scene had a lot of different layers to it that you could play with and toy with, and just a lot of it was like I'm sitting there having a conversation with both of them, but then you'll see a lot of these moments that I was telling the story or doing things were very introspective in the middle of the conversation, like more thinking to myself about, I'm figuring it out as I'm going along too. And as I'm saying it out loud, I'm thinking I'm having this deal. And I've heard, people complain, Gary would never, turn that quickly with the story. It's like, well, I'm not ratting him out for anything. It's not something he's going to be arrested for, or they can even charge him with anything for. They can't charge him for this story that I told about something that happened that 15 years ago or something like that was never brought up or an issue. And I think that saying it out loud also helped me realize a little bit more that he is, that he was capable of doing these things, and that more likely than not he did.
Jake, do you think the turning point is when Sepide tells you, listen, if he gets out and life goes back to normal, he gets his job, are you going to be with him 20? I'm obviously, cutting this short, but are you going to be with him 24/7? I feel like that's the moment that hits Gary. Like, holy cow, she's right. Yeah. Like, if he does get out, he's gonna create chaos and misery and go back to his ways of just destroying lives.
100%. 100% that was absolutely that moment where, and there was a scene, it was cut out, but totally understandable why it wasn't necessary. It was a scene where I'm in this graveyard that was a separate graveyard that we shot at. I think it was supposed to be an extension of the graveyard by our house, and it was a really pretty graveyard with all the Spanish moss and all that stuff in it. And it was where I'm walking through and I'm just pondering everything that was going on, and all of a sudden a falcon flies overhead, and I look up at it, and it was just kind of like one of those. That was all that really happened in the scene, but it was one of those things that wasn't necessary. It wasn't needed to get that story across, because we got it across in that scene with Sepide and with Greg, and then and then I had that scene later with Paul later on in the prison.
Last question, and thank you for all this time, man. I really appreciate it. Jake, talk about Taryn was phenomenal. I've talked about this in other interviews, like his progression of going from like con man to a guy that has all the answers, to a guy last episode who was just freaking angry, like, just tell me where they are. But talk about, if you want to touch on that. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was about working with Paul Walter Hauser. Everyone says when a camera stops, he's a jokester, he's this guy, but on camera, when it's on, he is frightening as hell. Jake, could you, as an actor, tell me your perspective on whatever you wanted to say with what I asked?
Well, that's exactly right. We were in between those scenes. We were joking around and screwing off and off. When we're on the weekends, I'd go over there and we played Nintendo. He has an old school Nintendo at his. I had an old school Nintendo at his place. He'd play with, and we'd go out drinking.
Paul had an old school Nintendo at his.
Yeah. He had Nintendo. He had a few different games. He had a 64 even, but we were playing like RBI baseball and we were playing home run derby and all that stuff. So he's great, and like on set, he's one of those guys that and I'm similar in that way, where you joking around and then go right into it, but it helps when the set is quiet, and so that you can get into that headspace a lot quicker, as opposed to when there's a lot of stuff going on that's very distracting, which wasn't the case here, especially in that scene. And what's good about Paul, what's great about Paul, is Paul makes very deliberate choices. And he goes for it. That's where people get hung up a lot, is that they're afraid to make a bold choice like Paul did, and then go for it and execute it in the way that Paul did it. And that's what makes Paul such a great actor. Like he's fantastic. I hope I could watch him in everything. Like I could, and Taryn as well. Taryn, like the journey that Taryn took on it, because he's a character that you don't like at all in the beginning of the he's just this cocky, arrogant prick jock. type guy. And then by the end of it, he goes through this transformation that really humanized him in a way that then the slow burn of how he got to that point was just all those beats were hit perfectly by him, and he did it so well. And like a lot of people, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but from the feedback that I've received from a few different people was that scene, there's the scenes where you think are going to be these big scenes, these big emotional scenes, but then you see this scene with like Taron where he finally gets out and he's asking for the pen. I just need a pen. I just need a pen. That was the scene that got a lot of people with that. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was such a fantastic scene and so well done that like even my dad said during that scene, he goes, I got a little welled up on that one when she finally said we got him, and he was asking, he just wanted a pen right to draw the map out and do all that because you see what he's going through, and it was such a great journey that he took through this whole thing. And it was like even being in the show and watching the show, it was, and I know what happens. Like I remember, I read the scripts, we did the table reads and stuff, but then watching it on screen it's entirely different. And I could say the same thing for Gavin's movies. They're totally different from how they're written and whatnot. But watching it as even being in it, and then watching it as a innocent bystander, you're just like, oh my God, this is so good. I was like, it was just a masterclass, like watching these guys work and do their thing, and just these scenes between Paul and Taron and Sepida and Greg and Ray and everybody. Robin Malcolm was fantastic. Everybody was just so good in it. I don't know. I always get nervous because I you have all these great actors in there. Greg Kinnear is just an icon.
So good.
You're doing these scenes with him, and you're like, God. In the back of your mind, you're kind of thinking, I hope I'm doing this scene and he doesn't look at me like I'm just a complete jackass that doesn't know what the hell I'm doing at all. You think that's in the back.
I love when he tells you to back off a little bit, like you get a little too close to his space.
Yeah. That was the first scene, and that was also a scene that we shot the same day I shot the park bench scene, because all those scenes kept getting compiled into each other because of the weather. So that was a long day. It was a long day, but it worked out. I think it worked out pretty well. And yeah, it was good. You mind stepping away? You mind?
and you managed to, at least I did. I managed to feel a little sorry for Larry in the sense that when they talk about, and again, this goes back to the excellent writing, what happens to them in the womb when Larry and Gary are in the womb, and what Gary does to Larry, obviously in the womb. That's kind of a sad story in itself, Could Larry have helped this? Could this have been prevented? So that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah, it is. And there's got to be there. I would imagine there's probably a level of guilt from Gary's standpoint for that. If he's privy to that, he's obviously privy to that knowledge because Larry's privy to that knowledge. So it's and everyone's privy to that knowledge. So I think that would be probably a level of guilt to Gary, even though it was completely unintentional, obviously, because it's in the womb. But yeah, I mean, that's a crazy, and that's not, I don't think that was the case in real life with the two brothers, because I just saw one little documentary about this story. I think it was on YouTube, and I got to catch some glimpses of Gary, who looks similar to Larry. I think they were identical twins, if I'm not mistaken, in real life. And Gary talks in a very high-pitched, strange manner. And if I'd have done that in the show, I think it would have taken you out of it. It wouldn't
100%.
It wouldn't have I wouldn't have done it justice. I don't think it wouldn't have looked right. And I had talked to Paul about that. Like I asked Paul right away, like, why didn't you play your twin brother? Kind of thing. I mean, granted, I'm happy to get the job, but I mean, why didn't they have you do it? And I can't remember what his answer was, but it made total sense, and it would have been. I think even still that would have taken the audience. Not that he wouldn't have done a great job, but it would have taken people out of it a little bit, to do that. So you got to take a little creative license anywhere, and I'm happy they did, because it put me to work, and I was able to, go in there and I think hold my own, doing and all right, doing all right on the thing.
Well, I'll say you kicked ass, but we can argue about the terminology. Jake, what's around the corner for you as for future projects? What can we throw out there? What can you say? What can't you say?
Well, I have I have that. Like I said, I have that movie Homestead. It was an indie that I shot last year, but they changed the name of it, and I can't remember what they changed it to. So I have that coming out, and then that's probably going to be a very limited release, or maybe on something. That's usually the case with the independent films. And then I did another independent film in Telluride, Colorado, called Black Diamond, which is a kind of a suspenseful thriller film that we filmed at the beginning of this summer. And then I went straight into doing the pilot for Will Trent for ABC, which got picked up. So I'm going to go shoot that. I think sometime at the end of September or sometime around there, I would imagine, if I'm even allowed to say that. I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. That we're going to be filming that out in Atlanta. And then what else? Oh, I just got done doing a movie called Sight. I just wrapped that the other day. So that's more of like a sci-fi. I don't know how to describe it really. It's there's a lot going on in it. So it's kind of like a space. It's kind of like alternate timelines, interconnectedness with people being the same people throughout different timelines and things like that. So I shot that with Theo Rossi and Miki Ishikawa and Ariel Kebbel. So that should be pretty. It was pretty fun. They did a crazy job on this really cool set in there. They built a really neat set for some big scenes in that movie. It was cool.
Speaking of sci-fi, let's end with this. You're a big 80s sci-fi guy. You can only take one of these movies with you, Jake.
God.
Just one.
Okay.
Aliens, Terminator, E.T., Predator, Flash Gordon, RoboCop, or the last Starfighter. You got one. Just one.
Oh my God! You said Aliens and not Terminator. You didn't.
Aliens, Terminator, E.T., Predator, Flash Gordon, RoboCop, Last Starfighter, and even I'll throw out Back to the Future.
These are so hard. Not Terminator 2, right? That's out because that's not 80s. So.
That's not 80s, yeah. So if there's one that I didn't name and you want to take it with you, well that's game on too. That's okay.
There's so many, but I think, boy, if I had to take one with me, boy, it's got to be between Aliens and Predator. I would think. God, there's some close ones in there.
That's a tough call, man.
Oh man, I'm gonna go with Predator. I'm just gonna go with Predator.
I would too. Jake, thank you for all this time, and hopefully you can come back on down the road, man. I really appreciate your time, and I'm a huge fan of your work. So thank you for your sticking with me and just giving me all this time. I just very appreciative of that, Jake.
My pleasure, 100%. And also, I just got the DVDs because I think that's the only way you can get it. There's a sci-fi 80s, specifically sci-fi 80s documentary out called The Edge of Tomorrow, I think it's called, or From Here to Tomorrow. No, Edge of Tomorrow is the movie.
And it's a documentary that you can only get on DVD, you said?
Yeah, these guys did it. And it has a bunch of the 80s. It has like Clancy Brown's in it, the Kurgan, and he has
Shawshank's Clancy Brown.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah.
He was the guard. I think it's Clancy Brown was the guard in Shawshank.
100%. And he was in Bad Boys with Sean Penn, the original the old school Bad Boys. And I haven't watched it yet because I made a promise with my two best friends growing up that when next time I'm down in Chico, that we're all going to get together and have like a whole, binge of just the 80s it's just about 80s sci-fi doc. Peter Weller's in it. It's just all 80s sci-fi documentary.
Wow, RoboCop. Yeah, speaking of Bad Boys, I'll never forget Sean Penn filling that pillow sack with that pillow with bars of soap. Oh my!
The Coke the Pepsis from the dispenser.
Yeah, did he put bars of soap in that, Jake? Am I wrong?
Might have. I can't. I thought he was just sitting there putting in money into the machine and kept putting in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I got to tell you, that movie gave me a lot of trauma. That was a tough movie.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Yeah, with Eli Morales and that was crazy. But yeah, you should check it out. It's called. I want to say In Search of Tomorrow. In Search of Tomorrow. It's called.
In Search of Tomorrow, only available on DVD.
I believe it is. Yeah, you might they have it on another format now, but I ordered the DVD set. They give you cool posters too that you'll dig. So,
I'm in on that. Jake, enjoy that wonderful family and nothing but the best in the future for you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate it, brother.